Good afternoon. Welcome back to the channel. This video is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Do your own research, make your own decisions. Guys, this is a very important video. I'm going to be talking about ICP and Ethereum. I should have done this video like 3 months ago, but I just had a lot of stuff going on. So I'm going to get to it now, and I will try to explain this the way that I understand it in layman's terms, okay? If I get anything wrong technically, please let me know. So recently there was an article put out about the top metaverse plays in crypto, and ICP was on that list. It was like ICP, Axie Infinity, Sandbox, Decentraland, so on and so forth. So, all right. Dominic just went over this in the interview he did with Wendy, but he's been over this a lot. And I saw like a 3-minute clip from that interview with Wendy, and this is just happened to be where he was going over this. That when you're talking about Ethereum-based applications, and all those names that I just listed off outside of ICP, those are those metaverse-type games and plays. Those are Ethereum-based applications, right? And so when we say that, it's important to know what function Ethereum is providing compared to what functions the centralized hosting providers are providing, all right? Now, if you've never seen the Web 2 versus Web 3 breakdown that Coinbase put out, I just posted in my community tab. And I would actually recommend kind of minimizing this and looking at that really quick just so you can conceptualize what I'm talking about. So let's just take any old Web 3 metaverse game that's an Ethereum-based application, right? So the token itself for that application launches on Ethereum. Any NFTs on Ethereum. Any in-application transactions recorded on Ethereum. But in all reality, Ethereum has a very limited role in the Ethereum-based applications. So when you're looking at the user interface, like everything that we see, that's going to be all provided by the centralized hosting providers. All right, and they're doing a lot of the computation. So it's really, if you look at it like a pie graph, you know, Ethereum has its role in Ethereum-based applications, and the centralized hosting providers have their role. They actually have a very big role in the Ethereum-based applications, which is a big problem for a number of different reasons. So Ethereum could continue providing the exact same functions it's providing right now for these Ethereum-based applications, and ICP could take over for a lot of these centralized hosting providers, the different, what they're actually providing to this application, essentially hosting the application. And ICP Canister smart contracts being able to speak directly to Ethereum smart contracts, there's no real barriers as far as connectivity network to network. And the applications here are endless. And a big thing that you really have to like wrap your mind around is that their Canister smart contracts, ICP can execute transactions on other networks simultaneously. So they can be, all right, look at ICP as a standalone network and understand the different things that you can build on ICP and with no need for anything else, all right? So understand the functionality, understand the speed, the security, all these other things. Now, on top of that, they can be executing transactions on other networks simultaneously. And it's very important to wrap your mind around this, guys, because it's a very, very, very big deal. And now somebody would say, well, why does that matter? Why does that matter? Well, if you're on a ICP-based DEX, right? Well, if you're just on any DEX right now, what's some of the biggest problems on those DEXs? Well, if you have cryptocurrencies that are native to other blockchains that are not launched on that DEX, you're going to have to use some type of wrapped whatever to even be able to swap for that cryptocurrency that's native to another blockchain, right? Because whatever DEX we're talking about on whatever network we're talking about does not have the ability, their smart contracts do not have the ability to execute transactions on that other network. So it's going to have to be some type of off-chain bridge setup, some type of wrapping mechanism, peg mechanism, whatever it is. And all the risks and vulnerabilities that come along with that, and you can't scale that. That hasn't even been successful. These type of setups haven't even been successful with, look at how small of a percentage of the overall population is actually using this technology. And these things have still failed miserably, all right? So when you're on it, let's just say on an ICP-based DEX, wouldn't it be nice to be able to use a DEX where you could pretty much swap for anything not some wrapped, duplicate where you don't know if it's even backed by anything, or if the people are going to rug pull or whatever it may be, or if you're using some type of centralized custodian. But if you're on just an ICP-based DEX and you can sit here and swap for Bitcoin, for Ethereum, for ERC20s, think of 5 to 10 other popular cryptocurrencies. You can just swap for all of those, and ICP's executing the transactions on those networks while that's happening. So understand how big of a deal this is, okay? Now, for metaverse games, play to earn games, all those other things, and this is why I bet so big on ICP, you're really going to have a lot of functionality when it comes to different networks and cryptocurrencies that are native to other networks. Because you can't, the more that your tech and your applications in the application, the more limitations that you have as far as what you can do with other networks, other cryptocurrencies, the more limitations you're going to have, okay? And you're going to be at a competitive disadvantage to the people who have significantly less limitations and more functionality. So I hope all this is making sense. The big takeaway here is that think about how many, this is beneficial for ICP and for Ethereum. I'm going to explain why. So why would Ethereum-based applications want to use ICP instead of some type of centralized hosting provider? More secure, not handcuffed by big tech. If big tech, one of these centralized hosting providers, were to tell whatever application it is, hey, you need to start collecting these users' IP addresses, you need to do this, you need to do that, or we're going to shut you down, what are they going to do? They're going to go to another centralized hosting provider and get told the exact same thing? At any point in time, big tech can rug pull them, more or less, right? So you take that off the table. So more secure, not dependent on big tech, and you get to access ICP's functionality. Now, there's a lot of other technical X's and O's that's over my head as it relates to Ethereum-based applications, moving away from the centralized hosting providers, using ICP instead. There's a lot of other X's and O's as it comes to, okay, well, would they be able to access the Bitcoin integration? And I think that's more of a technical conversation that I'm not even equipped or qualified to have. But that's why I reached out to the people at DFINITY like 2 or 3 months ago. I put this in my community tab. And I was like, so in a theoretical situation, if Uniswap, after the Ethereum and the ICP integration is done and is complete, could something like a Uniswap access the Bitcoin integration? Because that would be a very, very big deal. And the response is still up. I guess you got to scroll back a pretty long ways in my community tab. But, he said something to the degree of, yes, there's ways that these applications can be built for cross-chain functionality, and that after a full integration with Ethereum, that a lot of other things like that would be possible. But it was kind of a vague general answer. I'm not entirely sure he really knew what I was asking. But this is going to unlock so much additional functionality. And it's beneficial for both networks. It's beneficial to ICP because Ethereum already has a lot of network effects. Ethereum already has a lot of users on a lot of these applications. When I say a lot, relative to the ones on ICP. And from what I understand, guys, chain key cryptography, that's the big thing, okay? It's really big. I mean, there's a lot of big things with ICP, but that's really the big thing, in my opinion. Being able to have a completely independent network that can do all the things that ICP can do, but simultaneously you can be executing transactions on all these other networks. Huge deal. Huge deal. I had no idea stuff like this was even possible. Like before I understood that ICP could do this. And again, this was back in like last January, like a year ago. I said, at this point, my bet is just as much on chain key cryptography as it is anything else. So yeah, ICP would inherit the network effects. Like you just think about like a Uniswap or something like that, moving away, or any of these Ethereum-based applications moving away from these centralized hosting providers and starting to use ICP. That comes along with a lot of those users. And in my personal opinion, all right, so pause. What I'm about to say is 100% speculation and opinion, and I might be dead wrong, right? And even if even if Dominic were to show up at my front door, knock on my door and say, hey, you're wrong about this, I don't even know if I would believe him, to be honest with you, because it just makes too much sense to me. And I've said this, like, there's several of us that have been talking about this for going back, 12 months. Osagi, InvestQuest, and a few others. But it kind of looks like that there were a lot of these applications, a lot of these Web3 type applications, whether it be Metaverse, whether it be a DEX, whatever it is, they were going to launch their token on Ethereum, and they were going to use these centralized hosting providers. And that was going to be the way this was initially rolled out. And then after ICP continues to grow and scale, after the Ethereum integration goes live, and after ICP has the bandwidth to be able to support a lot of these different things and these users and these transactions and everything coming over to ICP, that at some point in time, there's going to be essentially a transition over to ICP and away from big tech centralized hosting providers. So it kind of looks like, and testnet might not be the best word to use, but it kind of looks like Ethereum was in some way, with many applications, not all of them, not everything that launched on Ethereum, but in some way, Ethereum to some degree was a testnet for ICP. That's how it looks to me. And testnet might not be the best word to use, but that makes the most sense to me. Okay, it's just like everything fits together perfectly, and I just don't know if that would have happened by chance. And again, Dominic was involved in the early days of Ethereum. So let me see if there's anything else that I have to go over, but I think that pretty much clears it up. I mean, that's just a big thing to like wrap your mind around, is that, and this same concept should apply to other networks outside of Ethereum. So other networks outside of Ethereum, they have, let's just say X-Chain, or you call Algorand, or you could say whatever chain you want to talk about. They have applications that are, on that blockchain, but they're not really, the tokens on the blockchain. But the application itself, right, the application layer, what we're actually seeing, that's using some type of centralized hosting providers. I think this exact same concept should apply in those situations as well, not just with Ethereum. And if anybody has, and this is actually a question, this is not me making a statement. So if anybody has the answer to this, let me know in the comment section below. So I watched the Victor Shoop, pause really quick. There's two videos I think you should watch that are relating to this. And one is Dominic's Bitcoin integration video on the Dfinity channel. It's like an hour long, but in the second part of that video, he talks about the Ethereum integration. And he was like, and he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, so if I get any, I'm paraphrasing, but he said, what we might see is a situation where after the Ethereum integration goes live, Ethereum is really just more so a settlement layer, and, those applications will be hosted through ICP. And whether or not that's how it plays out, I guess we'll see. But I mean, they're even still kind of talking about that now, right? So I think that that's worthwhile, just so you understand conceptually, like who's doing what, how these things actually work together. More importantly, what's the benefit of them working together? And there's one thing I missed out here. So it benefits Ethereum in different ways, and I think I missed this part. But the Ethereum-based applications, if they move away from the big tech centralized hosting providers and they move to an ICP-based setup, they'd be able to access ICP functionality, which, again, I threw out the Bitcoin integration. I'm sure there's a lot of X's and O's that would go into that. In certain situations, it might make sense. In certain situations, no. But on-chain data storage, and the big part, I think, that I missed was governance. Being able to access that functionality within ICP to have governance at the application level, so that the application can essentially be owned and operated by the users. That's a big limitation right now with so many Web3 based applications, because the big tech centralized hosting providers are involved and they play a very important role in making this all possible. Okay, back to what I was saying before. So the Victor Shoop video, this is really more so a question. So it's like a 10-minute video. He talks about chain key cryptography, and it sounds like that any other network that uses ECDSA signature schemes that ICP could have comparable integrations with those networks. Now, he said that not all of them use it, but a lot of the most popular ones do. And I don't know if that's like really the only criteria. I guess what I'm trying to understand is at what scale can this same integration that's happening with Ethereum, can this be duplicated across other chains? And what are the limitations there? What are the different parts that would need to be in place for that to actually be technically possible? That's really, it sounded like if a network did not use ECDSA signature schemes, that the integrations would not be comparable. But that's really more so a question to anybody that has the answer to it, okay? Guys, that's really all I got for this video. I hope all this made sense. I probably should have done this on my computer so I could show those different images, but that's why I posted in my community tab, just so you have an idea. Okay, Ethereum is doing XYZ. Centralized hosting providers are doing this. This is why it makes sense for a lot of them to use ICP instead of these centralized hosting providers, so on and so forth. Okay, that's it. Not financial advice. Those are just my thoughts. If I got anything wrong, let me know in the comments section below. I will get out another video before the end of the weekend, probably tomorrow, maybe tonight. We'll see. Take care. Have a good night. I'll see you in the next video.